Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
Pleased to meet you. Hope you get my name. Oh, yeah. But what's puzzling you is the nature of my name. Ah, yeah. Get down in it.
If you do not want to listen, if you do not...
Where were you? Where were you? When we asked. When we asked.
They've never asked.
To the battle. Now you tell us. And now you tell us. You have the audacity. You have the audacity. To tell us. You have been fighting deportation.
Yes, 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 yes I am. Yes I am. Yes I am. You do not. You don't know what you're talking about.
You are a liar. You are a liar. You are a liar. You are a liar. You are a liar.
You are not helping the cause that we want to take this first stage today. Well, do you not want to listen? Why don't we do this? Since you don't want to listen, we'll have to just go.
Yes, Nancy, you created a Frankenstein. And Frankenstein came back to bite you in the ravioli. Welcome to the Savage Nation. So here's Nancy Pelosi, a woman who encouraged rioting in America with her stupid speeches at commencements where she said, yeah, the disruptors, go out and disrupt. And they burnt a few cities to the ground. She took no credit for that. Now she created this issue of illegal aliens who have rioted and would let her speak because I guess she wasn't Maoist enough for her. She's only a Marxist, not a Maoist. So she gets shouted down by the Frankensteinettes that she created. You know, sometimes there is justice in the world. Welcome to the Savage Nation. These are very, very special times. And we're going to talk about Trump at the United Nations, where he threatens Rocket Man. Let's have my second opening, Robert. Let's play the song Rocket Man and Donald Trump's speech on Rocket Man. Let's go for a twofer at the opening today. We'll give 2 hours and one.
It's gonna be a long, long time. Touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. Oh, no, no, no.
I'm not an Elton John guy. I mean, after
the United States has great strength and patience. But if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea.
All power.
Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime. The United States is ready, willing, and able. But hopefully, this will not be necessary. That's what the United Nations is all about. That's what the United Nations is for.
Serious times. Serious times. Lesser men will stumble, lesser men will fall. Who has the strength to wake up every day and face the world that we're in? Very few of us do. And so we turn away from the world that we're in because there's almost nothing we can do about it. We feel powerless, don't we? We feel powerless with the madman in North Korea getting away with shooting rockets into the Sea of Japan, threatening Guam, threatening to blow up the United States, with the drug addicts in Hollywood attacking Trump instead of Kim Jong-un. These are crazy times. With Nancy Pelosi catering to non-citizens and abandoning American children, these are troubling times. But they're also special times. Very special times. Welcome to the Savage Nation. I guess I shouldn't get too preachy today. There's an old rule in radio, and never forget that radio is part of the entertainment business, is that you don't want to get too preachy. People don't want preachy. They don't. They'll listen to you. You'll get a 1 share, top 1.4, 1.2, 1.1, which means that 1% of those listening to radio in that market will listen to you. You'll always get a 1 share if you're on the radio for any period of time, except if you're in LA, you'll get a 0.1 share. A show on a Chihuahua barking from Mexico City will draw more of an audience than talkers in Los Angeles right now. That's because of the demographics of the city. But by and large, you could do anything on radio. You could read the phone book. You could read the Declaration of Independence, and you'll get the same audience every day. So having said that, I'm going to take chances, as I started to do over the last few weeks and months. I'm going to do a lot of news, views and reviews, as I always do. I mean, I got crazy stories that are so hard to believe. InfoWars found a tape of a professor, a Carol J. Baker, M.D. Now, remember, she's a medical doctor. She's a pediatrics infectious disease professor at the Baylor College of Medicine in Houston. And she told a National Meningitis Association panel discussion that a solution to the large numbers of white people who refuse to let their children be given vaccines is to get rid of white people. This is a medical doctor, a professor, an infectious disease expert, said that a good way to eliminate vaccine refuseniks, who overwhelmingly tend to be white people, is to simply get rid of all the whites in the United States. And she said that the immigrants are very compliant with vaccinations. They love them. Well, I'll let that hang in the air. It shows the madness of the times, because these are mad times. They're maddening times. They're perplexing times. And people are frightened. People are turning away from politics. They're turning away from men. The Trump supporters, many of them have turned away. I'm sure there's always a number who will support him. I support him up to a point. I mean, how we can support this guy, Luther Strange. What's his name? Luther Burbank? Luther something. Luther Strange in the race against Judge Moore. Judge Moore is a far better man. Everything he's reversed himself on, with very rare exception. He goes against DACA, then he's for DACA. Paris Accords, no Paris Accords. But he's our only guy. He's our only chance. He's all we got. And if we're only getting 20%, that's all we're going to get. It's better than the zero, minus 120% that we would get with any Democrat, socialist, Maoist. So that's all there is to that one. So that's why I say many of you are giving up on politics and you're turning away. You're going back to what you normally do: family, faith, sports, music, entertainment, and you're trying to ignore the politicians. Because what are politicians? They're all straw men. All politicians have clay feet. All of them are fakers, every last one. We thought we elected a businessman. We elected a politician. They turned him. Or this is who he always was. But he's the only one we have, and he's better than what we would have had. So we stick with him. And that's why I do other things and why I'm going to do something else right now. Today, as you well know, is Tuesday. That's a revelation right there. That's a Nobel Prize winner unto itself. It is Tuesday, the 19th of September in the year 2017, for those of you who are on medication. That's also a Nobel Prize winner. So what is so special about today, the 19th of September, 2017, other than we're on the brink of a nuclear war? And it was not caused by Trump. You could say it was caused by all of the vacillation leading up to these days, as with regards to North Korea, where you have a single family, a mafia family, the Kim family. It's a mafia family that sucks the lifeblood out of every North Korean simply for their own aggrandizement and their own wealth. I don't know if you understand that. That is what the mafia kingdom is. They call it a hermit kingdom. It's astounding to me that you don't understand what he has done. It's the third generation of mafioso in North Korea who have killed, maimed, murdered, tortured their way to controlling the entire nation. They have crippled the North Korean nation. So what do you expect Trump to do now that this maniac, this fat maniac, is now threatening the United States? You expect him to say thank you? So these are very special times. But they're special times for other reasons. These are special times for America, special times for the Western world, and it's related to a religious holiday that's coming up Wednesday night in the Jewish calendar. And say, now, don't turn the radio off if you're not Jewish. Listen to me carefully. You Christian people who are the basis of my entire show, listen carefully, please. Have you not been told a million times that this is a Judeo-Christian nation? Well, it is. Why do they say it's a Judeo-Christian nation? Because it is. Because the founders of the nation were devout Christians, which they were. And the religion of Christianity had great respect for the religion of Judaism. You can call it the father of Christianity if you want, or the grandfather, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. But the wedding between the Jewish tradition and Christianity has long been known amongst educated Christians and amongst educated Jews. And so when I say to you Wednesday night is the eve of the Jewish New Year, moving into a new year, would you believe that, almost 6,000 years? From the year 5,778 this year to the year 5,779. People say, what does that mean? What do you mean a new year for the Jews? How could that be in the middle of September? Our new year is December 31st. Get out the fireworks. Well, they're on a moon calendar, the Jewish people. We are on a different calendar than they are. And the Jewish New Year is celebrated beginning Wednesday night and sundown. It's known as the head of the year, which is the beginning of the new year for the Jewish people. Now, given, as I said, that Western civilization is based on Judeo-Christian values, the essence of this story is that these very special times apply not only to the Jewish people, but to Christians and to all others who practice any religion that is built upon the original insights of the Jewish prophets, and that includes Islam. Millions of people feel this, and they don't even know what they're feeling. Do you feel a special light in the air right now? Do you feel a special scent in the air? Well, you could say it's autumn, genius. That's why I feel a smell in the air, a different scent. It's autumn and nothing to do with religion. But the point is the Jewish calendar, which goes back about 6,000 years, still has an effect upon millions, if not more people. And you can feel it. And these days that are leading up to the Jewish New Year are especially auspicious to the mystical people in the Jewish tradition. I don't mean the bagels and lox people. I don't mean the people who don't even know what their own religion is. I don't mean the people who use their religion as a weapon. I am talking about the people who actually live with God, pray to God, and die with God, and are buried with God. They're very different than the secular people, very different. But even non-religious people feel what is in the air. They sense it. They sense it, and there's something different about these days leading up to this time. And according to the Jewish faith, this is known as the time when the king is in the field. What the heck is that? Is that another childhood story? The king is in the field? Come on, Michael, you don't believe in Santa Claus, do you? Well, I don't believe in Santa Claus, but I believe in God. And I believe that it doesn't matter what you believe. All I know is what I believe. And I believe my faith is important to you. Why? Well, you'll find out as I tell you what it means when I say to you the king is in the field. Now, if this is too religious for you and too off the base for you, I accept that. I truly do. So I will do the news, views, and reviews that I am known for, including the horrible news, the horrible views, and the horrible reviews I am known for right here on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. All right, welcome back. So I'm not going to give you anything about the king is in the field and what these times mean. I'm shifting gears now right back to the mind-boggling political stories that you are used to. We'll stick with the 1% of listeners to radio who want to hear the same thing every day. So we'll give you the stories. San Francisco deputy who had guns stolen from rental car no longer with department. This goes on over and over in San Francisco. A San Francisco sheriff's deputy who left his service pistol unsecured in a parked car, allowing a thief to break it and take it, is no longer employed by the department. The deputy had only been with the department for less than a year when he reported the burglary. Well, I have a different theory on these cop and sheriff burglaries in San Francisco. A lot of these gangbangers are joining the police department where there is currently no standards whatsoever, and because of affirmative action and demand to hire anyone except people who are trustworthy. They're bringing in people who they don't even know who they are. They're getting the gun, and then they're letting it be stolen by one of their friends so the gun can't be traced. That's all. Now, you didn't ask for that, but I gave it to you, okay? Don't bother telling that to the mayor. He's busy eating chow fun with the supervisors, who are busy eating a lot of fun with the newspapers. Portland designates second Monday in October as Indigenous Peoples Day. Maine's largest city will no longer celebrate Columbus Day. Instead, they're going to call it Indigenous Peoples Day. And that's because Columbus is a very bad guy. Portland resident Jean Sorkin, I wonder where she's from, said, Columbus was a murderer. He's a rapist. He's an enslaver. If he were alive today, there is no doubt he would be on death row, said Jean Sorkin. I can only guess where Jean Sorkin would be had Columbus not discovered America. But we'll let that hang in the air. How do you like this? How do you like this? So they're changing calendars now. Well, I've long asked, they took away Lincoln's birthday and Washington's birthday and gave us Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And they call those days President's Day. Didn't they wrap them into one? So why are they taking away the names of European Americans or Europeans from our holidays and leaving the others? Well, the answer is because there is a target on the back of European Americans and on Caucasians in general by the radicals who are running cities, counties, states, and universities. And that's the answer to that. Berkeley receives $100,000 to honor the legacy of the Black Panther Party. Now, the Black Panther Party, as you well know, are a group of murderers. And the American taxpayer gave a grant of $100,000 through the National Park Service to study the history, the visual culture, and the preservation of sights and voices. And the project will discover new links between the historical events concerning race. Huh? What? That's the Black Panthers? That's a discovery of race? They were radical Marxist revolutionary murderers in the 1960s. Well, that's the world you live in. And I'm not giving you religion because it won't do you any good. Or will it? This is the Savage Nation. Be here or be nowhere.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
Come on.
Joe en Paul, dat står een paar knieken, brabberilla Joe en Paul, dat weet je bully kriegen, brabberilla zoet, a koud, a gieten zolle perfect, a feten daftier, kuiven, naar bij Joe en Paul.
Oh, a piece of radio history from radio jingle time back in the old days. Way before I was a kid. I mean, this stuff used to play when the immigrants were largely Jewish in New York. It was about going and buying a suit and a coat for your son at a store called Joe. I play it once in a while when I get in a really silly mood, which I'm in. I'm in a wackadoodle mood. I feel both elevated on one hand. I feel like I'm in two worlds at once, and I don't belong in either. I feel that I'm in an exalted place and a very unexalted place. I feel I'm very, very high, and I feel I'm very, very low. I feel that my mind is in the clouds, and my body is in the Steppenwolf. How many of you out there ever read Hermann Hesse's Steppenwolf and know what I'm talking about? I talked about Steppenwolf yesterday. Is there someone out there who read Steppenwolf who knows why I referred to Hermann Hesse's book Steppenwolf? All right, that's a little too over the top for the meat and potatoes. I get it. And I'm not talking down to anyone. I'm just telling you the way it is. So here I am doing radio. And I'm doing politics, doing it for 20-some-odd years. And I was the progenitor of Borders, Language, and Culture. Wrote it in 94, became a movement. I was in the movement. I created the movement. I wrote the movement. I'm the godfather of the movement. I'm the architect of the movement. And then we get a candidate, comes along and realizes that this is a good idea, borders, language, culture, and he runs with my ideas, and he becomes president by a nose, the hair of a nose, and he wins. And, of course, he is stopped at every turn by those in power because the establishment is called the establishment for a reason. The establishment doesn't like to be disestablished. Remember the word in elementary school, disestablishmentarianism? It was a tough word to spell. Did they still teach that? I guess not. Too many immigrants who can't even spell the word dis. Well, I can say this and that, but they can't spell disestablishmentarianism, so you can't teach the word. But that was a tough word, disestablishmentarianism. I didn't even know what it meant. But the establishment does not want to be disestablished. So they said to Trump, we'll block you at every turn. We'll indict you. We'll excite you. We'll incite you. We'll rewrite you. And they did so. And so now he's doing their bidding, largely, while still throwing us an occasional bone. But let me remind you of something, all of those of you. And I'm going to, by the way, if you want some prophecy, you want prophecy, I'll give you prophecy. I know it's not a show about religion, but I'll give it to you. You know, I got to tell you something. I'm looking at a big blow-up of my poster, God, Faith, and Reason. A good friend of mine in the media, a giant, saw this picture of me that was taken by Vince Romini a year ago by accident. It's on the cover of that book. He said, make a poster of it and put it in your studio and keep looking at your own face and you'll see who you are. He said, always remember who you really are as opposed to who you think you are or who you think you become or who you think you're supposed to be on the radio. Just remember who you really are. That's pretty good. So anyway, we get back to what I'm talking about, which is what I'm talking about. There is a prophetic streak in me. I've known it from the beginning. I know it from the get-go. I knew it since I'm a child. But if a man declares himself to be so, he's laughed out of the theater. So I won't declare myself to be so. I don't want to be laughed out of the theater. I want you to continue to enjoy the show and get something out of it and go home saying that was pretty good. That's basically what it comes down to. But the fact of the matter is, just going back to Trump for 1 second, do you remember the last year of the reign of terror of Barack Hussein Obama? Do you remember that dictator that we had, Barry? The guy that Rob Reiner loved so much? The guy that the drug addicts in Hollywood loved so much? The man who had created the greatest surveillance state in the history of the world, outdoing that of the Stasi in East Germany. You know that guy, the liar, the snake, the devil himself who said that he hated millionaires and billionaires while he hung around only with millionaires and billionaires. And then after he retired from the presidency is only with millionaires and billionaires. You know that guy. Remember that guy? In the last years of the reign of terror of that guy, do you remember fearing that the federal government would one day come along and grab you off the streets? Because I do. Do you remember fearing that the federal government was listening in on your every conversation on your iPhones during the reign of terror of Barry, the dictator Hussein Obama? You do remember that? Because I do. Well, I don't fear that anymore. How about you? For that alone, I'm thankful Trump won, and I'm thankful that I devoted myself to getting him elected. Now, that could change. With the generals running the country, as I think they are, it's pretty clear that we've had a soft coup, which I've said before, and we don't know whether this is going to work out good for us. We don't know how it's going to work out yet. There's talk of war with North Korea, which is long overdue. That's a good thing. Now there's talk of war, let's see, with Iran. I'm not so sure that's a good thing. There's also talk now of war with Venezuela. I'm not so sure that's a good thing. But, you know, there's 5 generals running the country, and there's only 3 wars mentioned. So there's still room for 2 more. I guess maybe we can go to war with Mexico and Canada, which will give the other 2 generals something to do. But having said that, and not being too sarcastic, I want to go back to something else, which is I think that in these special days before the Jewish holiday of Rosh Hashanah, I should tell you about the myth or the fable, the king is in the field. Do you want to hear that or not? No? Okay, forget about it. No, they don't. They don't want to hear it. WGDJ Radio, line 1. Go ahead, please. Ken, what's on your mind?
Yes, I was hoping you'd tell us about the king in the field.
Now, you are a Christian gentleman, I understand.
I what?
Are you a Christian?
Yes, I am.
Then what would this be? Why would this be of interest to you, Ken? I'm sorry. Oh, I wish I could hear what he just said. You're what?
I'm very interested in our Hebrew roots.
You see? This is what... Okay, this is a beautiful call. Ken, stay on the line. Jim's going to get your name and number. We're going to send you God, Faith, and Reason when it's out in November. I wasn't going to do this, but I know that the true Christians, the authentic Christians, you know, there are Jews and then there are Jews. There are what we call Jews who believe in God and then the bagels and lox Jews. Those would be the Hollywood types, that they say they're Jewish by descent, but they don't really believe in God or the religion. They go once in a while, and that's it. They don't have any belief in it. They think it's a fantasy. It's not for them. And there are Christians who are known as lapsed Catholics who were once very religious, and they don't really go once in a while. They'll go for a christening. They'll go for a funeral. That's about it. That's most people today. But then there are those who actually are not like that, and they look deeper than that, and maybe it's because they recently suffered some terrible loss, the loss of a parent, the loss of a mate, the loss of a child. Or maybe they themselves are suffering and they know that they don't have too much longer on the earth, and now they're starting to think about things beyond sports and entertainment, and the news for that matter, because in our world today, news is much like a product much like sports and entertainment. It's the same thing. Either it's sports or entertainment or the news. It's all the same. You see what I'm saying? But then there are realities beyond these realities. And then there are special people who talk about these things and talk to those who really study these things and have really penetrated these things and then have abilities to tell you what this other world might be like. But does it belong on AM radio? No one knows. This is a gamble. I am in uncharted waters without a life preserver, without a paddle, without a boat, and I'm not Superman. So I don't know whether I want to continue this king in the field business right now. I may or may not. I may just do politics. I may just do your red meat stuff. I may just give you the red meat of the news. You know, I can give you the red meat more red meat. U.S. is considering downing North Korean missiles, even if they aren't a direct threat. Well, that's a good idea. I called for that last week. Why aren't we shooting them down? Climate change not as threatening to planet as previously thought, new research suggests. Don't tell that to those who just won the Grammys because they don't know what it means, since none of them went to college. And if they did, they studied a theater, not science. So don't try to explain that to them. Their minds are made up. Don't confuse them with reality. So what do you want me to do for you? Anything you want me to do on the Savage Nation? Because I have a sense of what's coming. These are crazy times. I'm not a prophet, but I'm just a man who studied history. And these are turbulent times we're in, and they're going to be much more turbulent. We all feel it. We feel that there's war on the horizon. We know that the ordinary person out there knows that things are changing. These are uniquely different times with great upheaval in terms of the storms that have hit America and the Caribbean. They're not the strongest storms. We know that. They're about the 7th strongest on record. But the fact that they're coming in now and walloping us now are making people uneasy, and they feel that this turbulence is only just beginning, and so do I. I think we're going to war in a way that you could never imagine. I can see it, and I can feel it. And Donald Trump was selected, believe it or not, for these times. That is correct. Perfect, he is not. You can say whatever you want about him, but America needed a wartime consigliere, and we have it in Donald Trump. It's coming, and he's in the right place at the right time. You'll know it more so later than you know it now. And then those voices of stupidity, like Rob Reiner, the fat slob, who would make a good Kim Jong-un in a replay of the movie that has not yet been done by the idiots of Hollywood, will even believe it one day. So what do I mean by the king is in the field? Do you want to hear about that? Devout Christians want to hear it. Well, I spoke to a very, let us say, religious guy. And I said to him, these are very strange days before the Jewish New Year. I can feel it in the air. I could just sense it. It's just something different. You remember when you were a kid, when autumn came, everything was crisper and the light changed? Remember all those feelings? Well, how many adults actually still feel those things? I raise my hand and say I do. But I'm not raising my hand because it's autumn. I realize that this is a very special time. And according to the mystics, this is the time when the king is in the field. What does that mean? To them, it means that God comes down to us at this time, disguised or dressed in many forms. He doesn't appear as God. And in this time, just before the Jewish New Year, if you want to believe in this fable of, to many of you, or consider it Santa Claus-like, God actually asks us through other forms and other people what we want for the coming year. He says to us, in your heart, what do you really want? Have you asked yourself what you really want for the coming year? Do you know what you really want for the coming year? Have you ever stopped and actually thought about what do you really want for the coming year? Do you ever focus on that? I'll bet you haven't, because we never think like that. We're so busy getting up and going to work and making a living and paying taxes and taking care of our children, taking care of our health. We don't think about that. We think day to day, minute to minute. We don't think about the future, do we? And yet some of us do. And that's for each of you to decide for yourself. And this is the time to tell God what you want for the coming year. In the very mystical Jewish tradition, people say to each other between the coming 10 days of the Jewish New Year, ending with the Day of Repentance, which begins Wednesday night and ends with the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, people will say to each other, may you be written into the book of life, Shana Tova. If you ever hear Jews say that to each other, Shana Tova, they're not secretly telling each other some secret. They're saying, Shana Tova, may you be written into the book of life. That's all it means. It's a very positive thing. And to most of you, it's a childish story, and you think it's like Santa Claus. But to me, it has more reality than that. So these are very special times. The king is in the field, and just recognize that you're not the first person on the earth, and you won't be the last.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. You know, I learned something shocking from an FBI report recently. Do you know that what the average property loss from just one home break-in is? $2,316. Okay, you don't think it's a lot of money. One burglary, over $2,000. If you tally up all the burglaries in the nation, it's worse. The total loss is in the billions. And with so much to lose, I'm telling you, it's as important as ever to protect your home. And I want you to try Simply Safe Home Security. Simply Safe protects every door and window in your home. The system, by the way, is completely wireless, so you can set it up yourself without drilling holes in your wall. And here's the beauty. I learned it only today. Let's say you move. You take it with you. Bingo. And you have a professional alarm monitoring system around the clock, which you can take anywhere with you. It's only $15 a month with Simply Safe. And then you can be sure that your home and your things are protected. So go to simplysafesavage.com. That's SIMPLI SafeSavage.com. And you're going to get a special 10% discount when you order today. Or if you want the security system right now, go to your local Best Buy. You'll have your home protected by tonight. That's SimplySafeSavage.com for 10% off. SimplySafeSavage.com. By the way, the motion detectors are heat sensitive to humans, not to animals. Would you believe that? I only learned that today. So your pets won't set off the home thing. So I want to go back to what we were talking about. I'm in another plane today, and the news is horrible. People fear war. It's in the air. And, you know, my friends, I got to tell you, these are strange times. Very, very strange times. And when you see Pelosi, who is an outright faker, get shouted down by the Frankensteinettes she created, and they won't stop. They're screaming at her, yelling at her. Here's a woman who actually created the mobs. She created Antifa by saying, go out and be a disruptor. She figured that way no one would look into her dealings or Feinstein's dealings. You know, the good, clean dealings they're known for. Just they would attack the other people. Now she goes out and the immigrants go screaming at her and shut her down. Isn't that amazing what's going on? She's not enough of a Maoist for them. She's just a Marxist. And she gets shouted down. Then there's Trump at the UN threatening Rocket Man, actually threatening Rocket Man. And it's pretty interesting. And, you know, it's going to happen. Something's going to blow. Something's going to blow. We all know that. We can feel it. Humans have a sixth sense about this, right? And so here we are. We have to live day by day, and we wait for the inevitable. Then they'll blame Trump for whatever goes wrong. They'll never say he did anything right. If he stopped Iran, if he stopped North Korea, if he smashed ISIS, it wouldn't be good enough for the Hollywood idiots. Why? Because they were always stupid. That's why they're actors. You think because they make tens of millions of dollars a year, they're smart? No, my friends. They don't know who they are, where they are, or what they're saying without a script. And you can take that to the bank.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
Truth is like wine. I'm hungry like the wolf. Welcome to the Savage Nation. Play it a little longer. Old song, 80s song. Let it all go, man. This is it. There's nothing to hold back because there's no tomorrow when it comes right down to it. Welcome to the program. We've been talking about the strange times we're living in, the perplexing times, the beautiful times, the remarkable times, the threatening times, the unthreatening times. But we all know that these are strange times. That we know. Not only by the political events around us, not only by the celestial events around us, not only by the natural events around us, but by the personal events in our own lives. We all know that these are very, very unusual times. And I don't know that I want to get into the spiritual and the religious right now. I think it's the wrong place for me to go. I'd like to go other places with you, but if you care to call the show on any of the topics I have mentioned, including the politics, the phone number is 855-400-7282. It's the Savage Nation. Guess I can tell you this story. I received a call this morning from, well, of course, anonymous call, but a very, very, very big person, period. Leave it at that, because if I say any more, you'll know who it is. And the person said to me, what are we going to do with Trump? I said, what do you mean, what are we going to do with Trump? Well, he said, well, you created the whole movement. We all know that, of borders, language, and culture. You did it. You've been at it for 30 years, Michael. You know, we all know you did. And what do we do now? He started with that, and then it's sort of he went off the rails. He's on the other side of the road now. And it's because of the influence of people in his family who are always been liberals. He said, so what do we do about Trump right now? So I said, well, the answer is we do nothing right now. That's number one, because no matter what we do, it's not going to change him because the powers that are controlling him are too great. And I said, in order to answer that question, you have to know who it is who we're dealing with. I said, it's not what we should do. It's who are they who are doing this to him that we have to discuss. So I took the other side of it. Then I explained to him that my answer is quite different than he might have expected. My answer is that we go in a different direction entirely, that we talk to the people who voted for Trump, many of whom are very upset right now, never mind the latest, which is backing the wrong candidate down in that race between Strange and Roy Moore. Roy Moore is more authentically the right person. How in the world could Trump and Vice President Pence go out and campaign for a mainline Republican turncoat? The answer is that's who's running the country. The RNC won. The RNC is the establishment. All the people that you have been calling Quislings, they're running the country right now. They're the ones who are running the country, period. So you have to reach them in another way. You're not going to reach them directly. We tried before. You think McConnell, you think Ryan are reachable? You're wrong. They are in their own worlds. They do what they want. They answer to higher powers who control them. So he said, well, what are you going to do, Savage? I'm asking you. See, he was calling all the leaders in the conservative area, one after the other, to find out what we thought should be done to get Mr. Trump back on track. So I said, I can't speak for the others. Everyone has their own way. My way is to go away from politics for a while and go into the spiritual side, because I sense that people are so disappointed in the political world. They're so fed up with having been lied to again. They're so fed up to realize that no matter who we vote for, we get nothing, basically. We get what they want to give us, with a few, pieces of bone with a little, red meat attached to it. That's about it. So they're very disenamored. So I said, I'm going to speak to the audience that elected Donald Trump through the faith area, the spiritual area. That's why the book God, Faith, and Reason is coming out in November, by coincidence, by the way. And just by coincidence, I said, I think people are moving away from politics and they're moving into the things that have sustained mankind for the ages. What are that? What are those things that have sustained mankind through the ages? Family and God, faith, in other words. People go back to the church. So even though the church is unreliable in many ways today, you take a look at the Pope, the false prophet in the Vatican. This is a man who was foisted upon the Catholic people. The educated Catholics know that the man is a stone-hearted Marxist, put in there like Obama was put here into America, to bring us into areas that are complete falsehoods. Global warming, you name it. Every left-wing cause comes out of the Vatican. And so the Catholics, the educated Catholics, who are rightly skeptical, don't trust this Pope, but it doesn't mean they've eschewed their religion. The opposite is true. Catholicism is a beautiful religion. It's a clean religion. It's a beautiful religion. It's an evolved religion. And so the Catholics continue to practice their religion and continue to go to church, and they ignore the propaganda that comes from the pulpit, the same way the average cop goes to work. Every morning he puts on the vest, he puts on the suit, he puts on the belt, he puts on the gun, and he has to ignore the liars in the streets who are being funded by George Soros and the other haters of our social order. He has to put up with the abuse of the spoiled animals in Berkeley, or wherever they may be, these rat children, these rabid mad dog children, these drug-addicted children who scream names at them, calling them murderers, racist, the same way as the soldiers who came back from Vietnam and were spit upon by the parents of these vermin. They ignored them. Same thing with you. So you have to understand that there are eternal ways to cope with perplexing times. And the most eternal way that I have seen work through the ages, and it'll work for you too if you're the most atheistic person listening to this program right now, whoever you may be, wherever you may be. I don't know where you are. I'm a man in front of a microphone somewhere in San Francisco in the area. I have a dog sleeping next to me. I'm alone in a room. There's nobody here. All I have are books and screens and keypads and keyboards and lights, action, and no camera. So, who are you? I don't know. There's a lot of you. I have a big audience, so who are you? You are who you are. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do in these perplexing times? Everyone's going to do it their own way. I sense in my being that there's going to be a return to faith. I think people are so disenamored of politics and so distrustful of government, which is an old story, and they so hate the entertainment business, and they rightly do because of the snakes and the anti-American rats who are running it, that they're not even going to do that much anymore. You look back in the World War II era, you see like actors, great actors like Jimmy Stewart, who actually flew a B-24 bomber on missions over Germany, came back and was a great actor. You see so many of those greats of World War II became great actors, great directors. And look what we have now. Look at the spineless American-hating filth that runs Hollywood today. So people rightly say, go to hell. I'm not going to go to your movies. I'm not going to do anything you produce. I don't want it. I don't want this filth in my life. You've destroyed our country. You've weakened us. You made us weaker. So people are going to go back to the basics in plain English. What does that mean? What's everyone going to become a holy roller? I expect all of you listening to the show is suddenly going to go out and become a holy roller. I don't expect that. I think in a small way, in a very tiny step, each one of you is going to make a small move back to what is in you. And what is in you is not too hard to figure out. I don't care if you're a bearded hipster in Brooklyn who thinks you're the coolest thing on the planet, who thinks you invented the word hip. 2 generations ago, there was a religious person in your life, and you have that person's DNA. And that's as simple as that. And what's in your DNA is in you. So I think that that's going to be reignited in you. It's that simple. So that's enough for the preachy for the moment. Is it too much for you? Sorry if it is. Let's take some calls because I'll do this anyway, whether I want to or not. You know, at a certain point, things come out of you that you don't even want. If you're in a free-form medium, as I am, called talk radio, and you don't follow a script, and you could actually hear the callers, and you could sense the callers, and you don't talk about sports in order to cover up the fact that you don't know what else you're talking about, and you give one from the heart, this is what's going to happen, is that no matter what I think I want to do, something else is going to be done on this radio show, because the times they are changing, and I am changing with the times. It's that simple. Let's take some calls. Steve on WABC. You're up on the Savage Nation. What's on your mind?
The favorite book. The protagonist, Harry Howler, which 2 H's, stands actually for Hermann Hesse, and you have a lot in common with him as a kindred spirit. I found a line, it made a big impression on me as well. There are 2 lines he writes in here that struck me in particular. Howler belongs to those who have been caught between 2 ages, who are outside of all security and simple acquiescence. He belongs to those whose fate it is to live the whole riddle of human destiny, heightened to a pitch of a personal torture, a personal hell. It's a very powerful statement.
Sorry, I'm having a good laugh. That's very nice. I appreciate it, Doctor. Very good psychiatry.
Well, it struck me very much. There's a line also that André Gide wrote about Hesse, that he was a rebel individualist divorced from established dogma and institutions, a lonely, incorruptible seeker of new norms. And it is lonely. In fact, the whole word Steppenwolf, which means a lone wolf on the steppes, isolated from all other creatures.
Right.
Is actually the heart of the whole. Steppenwolf is basically a schizophrenic soul.
That's right. But Steve, wait, before you go, you're talking about Hermann Hesse's book Steppenwolf, which I read in the 1960s. It was a big thing along the time when I was in college. A big thing. People were far more curious and more intellectual than they are today. They become mean-spirited haters. They think that hating white people or hating Trump substitutes for actual study. I get that. So you're probably an older guy. You read Steppenwolf, and you're still referring to it as freshly as the day you first read it. When I first mentioned the book Steppenwolf yesterday on the show, I was saying in a different way. I transmuted it into meaning something slightly different, which is that we all are Steppenwolves with different steps virtually every day that we walk upon, meaning there are 2 souls inside man, the higher soul and the animal soul. And the Steppenwolf is the animal soul, who is constantly prowling, constantly on the prowl, constantly out there, and constantly leading us astray, and the higher power tries to control the wolf. Isn't that sort of what we're talking about?
It is indeed, and also combined with it, there's a seriousness that's somber on the one hand, but also the human, our inability to change it makes us desperately humorous at the same time. One of the things that most moved me about Steppenwolf when I read it was that, if you remember, Mozart was his god. I've heard you mention many times that you loved great music.
I played Mozart's Requiem yesterday for that exact reason.
Well, when Harry Howler first heard the first Victrola record of any Mozart piece, he mentions he hated it. It was like defacing a great painting masterpiece to hear it on the first Victrola records. And I've always wondered what Hermann Hesse would have written today if he heard our digital stereo high quality.
Are you? You got to tell me what you are, what you did professionally, please.
I'd rather not. Let's just say that, like you, I'm a seeker, and I've read a lot and great literature.
Okay, I won't go there then. Were you in the medical field? That's all I want to know.
No, not at all. Alienated from medicine altogether.
Okay, good. Stay on the line. I want to talk with you. I don't know if this is of any interest to a general AM audience, AM radio in these days of a debased psychosis I mean, a debased psyche. The American mind is so debased by the music, by the movies, by the idiots in Hollywood who cannot hold a thought for more than 10 seconds unless it's to debase America, white people, or Trump. I don't know if the average audience can even follow what you're saying, but I can, so I'll come back to this wonderful caller. We're talking about a rare book today called Steppenwolf by Herman Hesse that somewhat relates to the times we are in. Let's take a quick break and come right back on the Savage Nation.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Welcome back. Listen, I got to tell myself, I want to talk about like a review for a minute. So I told you that Ray Donovan is a stinker show. It used to be great. All of a sudden, with this death and dying and the cancer, I don't understand what's going on with that show. I can't watch it anymore. It's the most depressing TV show on the planet. With the hair and the, I mean, it's terrible to say. You don't turn on a TV show to get depressed. So I'm not watching Ray Donovan. That's over. Then there's a new show called The Deuce about 42nd Street, softcore porno, garbage, and just it's terrible. But there's another TV show I saw last night I have to tell you about called The State on National Geographic. It's about the Islamic State. And again, Islamic State, ISIS, Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS, Islamic State, run by thugs who take their religion very seriously, who take their religion literally, who try to impose Sharia law upon the areas they conquered, and it's done in such a captivating way that I recommend it very highly. It's frightening to watch the show, The State, on National Geographic. To understand the fanaticism and the evil of the enemy, you have to watch this show because you will not get it from an ordinary source. So you see the recruits coming in from around the country to join ISIS. One of them is portrayed as an African woman who lived in England. She's a doctor, and she wants to be a doctor for ISIS. And they tell her she can't practice her medicine without wearing gloves. And I don't mean surgical gloves. They make her wear like leather gloves to cover her hands. And she says, brother, I can't do it. My hands are covered. You put those gloves on, he yells at her. And cover your face when... So she says, but I'm going to spread disease. Don't talk about disease. Sharia is superior to your stupid theories. And then they show the brutality of how they treat women. If you think an animal is mistreated in the third world, you haven't seen how women are treated by people who practice Sharia law. You have never seen abuse like this. Sister, your outfit is too tight. Loosen that cloak around it. Cover your face. So the women are shocked to find out that these people mean business, and they've been dragged back to the 7th or 8th century. And the inhumanity to each other, as portrayed in the show The State, is very important for you to watch.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE. Savage.
We will stop radical Islamic terrorism because we cannot allow it to tear up our nation and indeed to tear up the entire world. We must deny the terrorists safe haven, transit, funding, and any form of support for their vile and sinister ideology. We must drive them out of our nations.
He's right. So we have the right man for the right times, and of course Rob Reiner and the vermin in Hollywood hate him. They respect ISIS more than they respect Donald Trump. The psychosis is so great that they have more contempt for Donald Trump than they do for Kim Jong-un or ISIS. This is how sick the world is today. So I'm telling you to watch this National Geographic show, The State. It's about 4 young British ISIS recruits who go over to Syria and they're full of optimism. They think they're going to save the world by introducing a pure Muslim state under Sharia law, a new world for them. A Sharia they think is a paradise. And then they're hit with the harsh realities of life under the monsters, the very human monsters that they confront, meaning their leaders. And then they're forced to live in the Islamic State. And the scenes that are depicted, let's say, in a marketplace, in an area that's conquered, whether it be Mosul at the time, you see the ordinary citizen trying to go about their lives. A marketplace where one is selling bread, the other one is selling this and that, and how the thugs, in this case it's usually the women thugs, are given Kalashnikovs and full-body cloaks to walk around and treat everyone like animals and to enforce Sharia law. Sister, what are you doing out in the street without your husband? And they beat the woman and make her go home. They beat her up. She's not supposed to be in the street without her husband. You believe this story? This is what they do. And everyone's terrified of these maniacs. And then they show the little children are forced to watch the torture and beheading of a prisoner. It's hard for me to watch it. I'll tell you, it was hard for me to watch it. How well it was done in this show, The State. But very important that you do watch it to see who the enemy really is. Because you're not getting it from ABC, CBS, NBC, or shall I even say any of the alphabet channels on the cable. They will not show you the graphic reality, the unflinching view of actual ISIS is what you see in the state on National Geographic. So it's about the Islamic State and Westerners who join the cause because they're true believers. And as they're drawn into ISIS's grips, they start to question their beliefs, and then they're threatened by the fanatics who say, are you having second thoughts? And they're no, because they know what will happen to them. If they even admit they're having second thoughts, they're going to be killed or tortured themselves. And this is shocking to me for many reasons, not because I didn't know this, but because of the cowards in Hollywood who will never portray radical Islam for what it is. Never have they shown it. All the brave Robert De Niro's who have such big mouths against Donald Trump, the Rob Reiners and all the rest of them who have such hatred for the deplorables like us, have never said a nasty word about the Islamic State. Can you believe how sick the world is? Well, that's why I say you should watch it, and that's why I say thank God we have Trump. For whatever we're getting a lot more than we would have been getting had won. So he says radical Islamic terrorism in front of the UN. Can you imagine what that did in the UN? Can you imagine what that speech did in the United Nations? Do you know that on Fridays in the General Assembly Hall in the United Nations, a supposedly secular organization, there is a call to Muslim prayers in the UN? Do you know that the prayer rugs are stored right there in the United Nations? Do you know that no other religion has been able to appropriate the UN building as a place of worship other than the fanatical, terroristic Muslims who have taken over the UN? And do you know that we pay 25% for the renovations and daily upkeep of the United Nations? And we live in a nation that's supposed to be a separation of church and state? Did you know? And did you know that just down the hall from where President Trump spoke in the UN, there is a permanent public display featuring, quote, a Plight of Palestine exhibit placed right next to the Holocaust exhibit to confuse you and the world into thinking that the Israelis are modern-day Nazis and the Palestinians are the Jews being forced into concentration camps and to ovens. The UN is a home to global anti-Semitism. Last year, 70% of all General Assembly resolutions criticizing a UN member state for violating human rights, 70% were directed at Israel alone. Did you hear me? 70%. 70% about Israel's threat to humanity. Hundreds of thousands of people slaughtered in Syria and in Rwanda and in Sudan. And there was never any General Assembly attention like this. And yet one president after another writes a blank check for these anti-American backstabbing vermin. One after the other. They kiss the ring of these people. And of course they all rob the money. As you know, they're much like the politicians in your hometown. They keep shifty books and steal the money. Nice suits. Oh, Brioni suits, $200 ties, polished shoes, opera, symphony. They're all there at San Francisco. And they're raping the taxpayer day and night. Same in the UN. And they cover it up by attacking Jews in the UN. And in America, they cover it up by attacking Trump and those who voted for him. It's a game. And that's why Trump should cut spending on the UN. He must do it. And he gave a great speech about that. And by saying radical Islamic terrorism, it was a sea change from Barry Hussein Obama, who never ever mentioned Islam after any one of the numerous Islamic terror attacks here in America or abroad, because Barry Hussein Obama is what is well known as an Islamophile. That's as polite as I can be. He's an Islamophilic man because both of his fathers were Muslim, and it's to be expected. Both of your fathers are Muslim. You're never going to say a bad word about Islam, even when it hurts people in your own country, because you're not going to say it's related to the religion. You're going to come up with the propaganda that they've hijacked the great religion. It has nothing to do with religion. It has everything to do with religion. If you watch this show, The State, on National Geographic, you'll see all their terror is related to their religion. When they cut a man's hand off, it's because their religion says to cut the man's hand off. And he's screaming and he's yelling and they're making little children watch. He's tied to a block. Another Muslim tied to a block. Cut his hand off. The man screaming. Blood is shooting out of the hand. And then the Islamic cuts the back of the man's neck very slightly as the man is screaming in pain and begging. And he pours salt into the wound of the neck. And then the overlord monster, the Hitlerite with a scarf, gives him the thumbs down and he cuts the guy's head off. And you see the little children wince in shock because it's inhumane. The children have a humanity in them, but they're slowly being brainwashed to become monsters like their fathers and their brothers and their uncles, which is why I say a pox upon all of them over there. And Trump is doing the right thing. And God bless the Russian Air Force for having turned the tide. God bless all the special forces who were there and are there. God bless the Iraqi military for being there. God bless all the American troops who are there fighting the most dangerous scourge the world has seen since Hitler was on the world stage. So that's the world as I see it. It's one man's view. Let's take some callers on the program. KBET in Las Vegas, Carl, line 2. You're on the Savage Nation. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Dr. Savage. I've called you before. I'm a doctor in clinical psychology, and I've been waiting so long. I've been sitting here self-analyzing myself and came to the diagnosis of screwed up. No, just
at least you've got a sense of humor, Doc. So what's on your mind?
Well, you're talking about religion, and I've come to the conclusion. I studied a little bit that religion is meant as a control over populations. And I'll explain why.
Well, let me relate to that. There's nothing new under the sun. Karl Marx said religion is the opiate of the masses. Okay, so you're saying the same thing. So what do you substitute this control with? The state?
It should be your own thoughts, but it doesn't always work.
Oh, hold on, let me ask you. Are you a psychiatrist or a psychologist?
Psychologist.
Okay, so you don't control people with drugs like psychiatrists do.
No.
You control people with thoughts, but you're still controlling people, aren't you?
No, I'm not controlling them. I'm trying to tell them what their problems might be and how to help it. I don't force them to do it. Control is a brainwashing effect.
All right, that's fair enough, but psychiatrists do control them through medication.
Yes.
They actually wash their brain of their emotions and their feelings and put them on medication to turn them somewhat robotic. Okay, fine. We all understand that. So what is wrong with religion if it's practiced and brings a person to a more beautiful state with fellow humans? What is wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with religion if it's a proper religion. But what I'm saying is that all over the world, if you look back, I don't care if you go back to Nazi Germany, the first thing a dictator does is cut off the press and the media, then religion comes next. Then, like Nazism, became the religion of the state. You have to, or Japan, the emperor was a god, was a deity, and that's the religion. Or in Russia, back in the czars and then Stalin and all, the communist leaders were the religion. There could be no religion.
Well, doesn't it sound like the universities in America today, where there is no religion except the religion of progressivism?
Well, again, that's fine.
No. I mean, you're a progressive. Look what they did at Berkeley. They just closed down Free Speech Week because it was people on the right who were going to speak. You can't have free speech if it's not the speech they want to hear. Is that not a form of fascism?
To a point, yes. No, I agree.
Well, I mean, yes. What do they have to do? Kill somebody? Who do they disagree with? They are. They're burning, they're looting, they're attacking police, they're breaking down windows, they're looting. All when some conservative speaks, that's free speech. Come on. That's fascism right in front of our eyes.
Well, yeah, you're getting to the First Amendment, though, freedom of speech. I mean, anybody can say whatever they want as long as they don't advocate.
Well, they're not allowed to say whatever they want in San Francisco or Berkeley. They said they said they don't want anyone from the alt-right speaking. So no, it's not a free speech issue anymore in the liberal quarters of America. They have become outright fascist like the Islamic State.
Yeah.
All right, so what's your main point, Carl? You don't like religion. You're a doctor of psychology. I respect that. I'm a member of the same profession in my family. I respect that. So you say religion is the opiate of the masses in your own way. So what's the answer?
No, I'm not saying I don't like religion. If a religion is practiced correctly and is followed and doesn't harm anybody, all
right, so that's Christianity today in America amongst 99.9% of Christians. It is Judaism as practiced amongst 99.9% of the Jews. So you're talking only about one religion, aren't you? But you won't say it.
Well, no, there are murderers and thieves.
Well, we understand that, but it's not the religion that makes them murderers and thieves. While in the case of ISIS, they are murderers and thieves, and it is the religion that makes them that way.
Yeah, but going back to my first thought, that is a religion of control, like Nazism was, or communism is.
Yeah, I understand. So what are you actually suggesting? We have almost no time in this little segment. What is the answer? You want people to think for themselves?
If somebody takes over a country and is stronger than you, they can force any religion on you by threat of death. And you have to go along.
That's what's done in the Islamic State. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
That's why they need to be snuffed from the planet. That is why they need to be annihilated down to the last strand of DNA to prevent that virus from spreading. And Doctor, thanks for calling from Las Vegas. The time, it is so short. Oh, it's so short. It's 47 minutes after the hour. This is the Savage Nation. And before I take a break, I'm going to tell you about LifeLock. Why? Because it's an important story. Equifax, you know who they are. They recently announced a breach that could affect 143 million Americans so far. 143 million Americans. The organization determined that the credit card numbers for about 200,000 consumers and personal data, including Social Security numbers, for about 180,000 consumers were accessed. How do you know it wasn't you? Did you know you are 11 times more likely to become a victim of identity fraud if you are notified of a breach? Well, good thing that there's LifeLock. LifeLock detects a wide range of identity threats you may miss by just monitoring your credit, like someone stealing from your 401k. How would you like that? But you see, if there's a problem, a U.S.-based identity restoration specialist will work to fix it. We know no one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions at all businesses. But LifeLock can help you see more threats to your identity. Go to LifeLock.com or call 1-800-LifeLock with promo code SAVAGE. Do that. 1-800-LifeLock, promo code SAVAGE. For 10% off your LifeLock membership, visit LifeLock.com and save 10% now.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. What I'm saying to you, you have a media, Hollywood news establishment that spends more of its time hating Trump, hating those who voted for Trump, than they do exposing the dangers to the world, either of ISIS or of North Korea. When have you last seen a show about the kingdom called North Korea, which is a mafia nation where one family, the Kim family, has ruled the poor people of North Korea through 3 generations, stealing every dime that they can for the family called Kim? When have you heard a story about that? When has Hollywood done a story about that? Why has Hollywood not done a story about that? Why has the big mouth Robert De Niro not used his powerful voice and his powerful ideas to talk about the dangers of Sharia law, the dangers of ISIS, instead of attacking Trump? He's a mook. I'll punch him in the nose. I used to respect this guy. I thought he was actually what he looked like in the movies. But they're not. They're crazy, these people, and hypocrites to boot. And that's all fine. That's part of the human condition. But when it comes down to the danger they're putting us in by distorting the mind of the average American the way they do every day, then it becomes my business. So that's what we've been talking about today. I recommend National Geographic's ISIS drama called The State. You will see portrayed in a dramatic fashion the true state of the Islamic State, as opposed to that proposed by ABC, CBS, NBC, and Katzenberg, Matzenberg, and Ratzenberg.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, winner of the National Radio Hall of Fame Award, Michael Savage.
From now on, our security interests will dictate the length and scope of military operations, not arbitrary benchmarks and timetables set up by politicians. I have also totally changed the rules of engagement in our fight against the Taliban and other terrorist groups. In Syria and Iraq, we have made big gains toward lasting defeat of ISIS. In fact, our country has achieved more against ISIS in the last 8 months than it has in many, many years combined.
There you go. Well, there's a great benefit to Donald Trump as opposed to Rob Reiner or Jerry Brown running the country. So he's giving it to him really good at the UN. He's attacking these corrupt politicians right in the heart of the enemy, and they don't like it very much. And as I told you in the last hour, you'll not believe what the UN is actually doing. I saw this article by Ann Baevsky on Fox News about the UN, and I was as stunned as you were if you heard what I repeated in the last hour. I don't know if you heard this. Did you know that on Fridays in the General Assembly Hall building of the UN, there was a call to Muslim prayers? You say, well, that's no big deal. They do the same at Harvard. Did you know that no other religion has appropriated the UN building as a place of worship? Well, that's no big deal. They do that at Berkeley. Only Muslims need apply. You see, there may be a separation of church and state when it comes to Jewish, Christian, Buddhist, or any other religion, but not when it comes to Islam. Why is that? Why is that? Because that's the way it is. It's a religion of conquest. It's been that way from the time it was founded. It's not a religion of peace at its core. It doesn't mean there aren't peaceful Muslims. Of course there are peaceful Muslims who have evolved. Yes, of course there are. But unfortunately, time is running out. The clock is running down. And we keep having these wooden heads who put their heads in the sand and attack Donald Trump as though he's worse than Kim Jong-un and ISIS put together. No mention of radical Islamic terrorism is allowed except by Donald Trump. Listen to what he said in clip 3 today in front of this crowd of gangsters called the United Nations General Assembly. Listen to this one.
We will stop radical Islamic terrorism because we cannot allow it to tear up our nation and indeed to tear up the entire world. We must deny the terrorists safe haven, transit, funding, and any form of support for their vile and sinister ideology. We must drive them out of our nations.
Now you understand why he's hated so much by those in the media, because this is anathema to their big lie. The General Assembly is an audience against America. Did you know that less than half of the 193 UN member states are free democracies? Less than half. And do you know they all share a common goal, which is tie down America and destroy Israel? Did you know that? The only people who get applause are those who apologize for America, like President Barry Hussein Obama. In his first UN speech, Barry Hussein Obama said America has acted unilaterally without regard for the interests of others. Only a few days after the murder of Ambassador Stevens in Benghazi, he spent 4 paragraphs apologizing for a video that didn't even exist. Well, my friends, that's why I'm glad that we have President Trump as our president. As I say, 10-20% is better than minus 120%. It's that simple. But again, I want to refer again to a program I have nothing to do with called The State on National Geographic. I don't know how many of you get cable. It's such a gripping portrayal of how the radical Muslims treat each other. And remember who they're doing it to. Other Muslims who are not fanatical enough. What they do to women, what they do to other Muslims, what they do to Christians is unbridled nightmarishly. It's an unbridled nightmare. That's what I'm trying to say. And yet Jerry Brown seems to think that anyone who voted for Trump is a knuckle-dragging troglodyte. That's what he said. He's so smart, that Jerry Brown, it's hard to believe he can live within his own brain. How a man could be so smart as to call everyone who is a voter for Trump and a supporter of Trump a caveman. It's amazing how hard it must be for Jerry Brown to live within his own brain and surrounded by his friends, such as the doctor who said that the only solution to those who will not take vaccines in America is to get rid of all the whites in the United States. Oh, yeah, I have that up on michaelsavage.com. We also have the article that I just mentioned to you, not about the sex dolls, no, about Jerry Brown, who had the nerve to say that Trump supporters are cave dwellers. This is the kind of crap that they say to each other with a smirk, and they support each other, not realizing that they themselves are the cave dwellers, living in the cave of their own left-wing fanaticism. Senate overwhelmingly passed bill pumping $700 billion into the military. I don't know. I know there's a lot of graft in there. Massive Arctic ice gain over the past 5 years. Sorry, Jerry. It's actual global cooling. There's the article. There's the data. It is linked up on michaelsavage.com with an actual picture of actual ice, Jerry. Real ice. Massive Arctic ice gain over the past 5 years. These are real pictures, Jerry, not rigged up by knuckle-dragging cave dwellers. This is the Savage Nation. 2 London subway attack suspects are refugees. Did you hear that? Oh, the one that got swept down the river, swept down into the sewer, about the Muslims who attacked again on the subways in England. Oh, yeah, they were Muslims. And oh, yeah, they were refugees. Only, here's the rub, Jerry. One of the suspects was taken in by a Christian family who was taken in over several hundred refugees over their life. Nice, good British Christians. One of these animals, Yahya Farouk, 21, was finally hunted down by the Brits for the London subway attack that injured 30 people. But his parents, meaning the foster parents, were once honored by Queen Elizabeth for their charitable work. Well, they chased this little punk down, the brave man with the bomb, Yahya Farouk. He was collared late this weekend outside a fried chicken joint where he had worked for 9 months. And as he was knocked to the ground by a female undercover officer, the brave man who wanted to blow up women and children because he hates the race, hates their religion in particular, he screamed, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry." He allegedly yelled, the big brave member of ISIS, as undercover cops pinned him down, causing a pile of Kit Kats and chocolates to spill out of his terrorist bag. What's interesting is that his family and his friends didn't like the fact that he was taken in by a Christian family. They thought it was terrible that he would live off the fat of the land in a Christian nation, in the home of a Christian family. And you want more of them in your country, you idiots, you morons, you psychopathic, suicidal lemmings? Well, that's my opinion. It's one man's opinion. And if you think I'm going soft on you, you are mistaken. I haven't even begun to get hard. There's a way to be hard and a way to be soft. Sometimes you can be hard by sounding soft, and sometimes you can be soft by sounding hard. There's a lot of people in the media who like to scream and yell and screech and sound like Frito. They're actually quite soft. They only make themselves sound hard, but they're actually brittle. So if I sound too soft, it's because I'm actually getting harder. This is the Savage Nation, 855-407-282. Let's go to a military man who actually saw what ISIS does in Afghanistan. And I open up the lines to any former or current members of the military who can tell the audience listening to the show in America and around the world what ISIS actually does to people. Mark on WFNC in North Carolina. Welcome to the program. What's on your mind?
I just want to. I find it astounding how we don't take this serious enough. It's kind of a. I wouldn't say a standard, but we see a lot where you have a group that brings guys in that will decapitate multiple people in front of an entire village of 200-300 people, and you would think that there would be, a little somber aspect to it because not all of them can buy into that. However, you'll notice that the whole village is clapping and cheering and going on and carrying on. So clearly this is a systemic issue that...
Well, let me ask you something. This is important for me to know. Are you saying they're clapping and cheering because they have to and they're afraid they'll be killed if they don't, or because they actually like seeing the person beheaded because they weren't practicing Sharia law?
They seem pretty excited to me.
Are you saying as a former... Are you a military... You're obviously military, correct?
Yeah.
I know you can't talk about it. So you've seen this beheading? How? In actual... With your own eyes?
I'd rather not. All
right, I got it. You're undercover. Got it.
I know.
Don't say anything. I get it. I know where you're calling from. FNC in North Carolina, the home of the bravest. I get it. So you're saying the village is complicit rather in this terror. It's not just ISIS. It's the whole village wants this horror and this terror. Isn't that what you're saying, Mark?
Without a doubt.
No, I didn't know that. Gee, I thought they were innocent bystanders who practiced the religion of peace. Little did I know. Who knew? I guess I've watched too many movies by Hollywood and too much news by the media to actually know the truth. I do know the truth, Mark. This is a very grave threat to our survival. And all I can say is thank God Trump is president and that it's not Hillary Clinton. Let me send you a free copy of my new book, God, Faith, and Reason, out in a month or two. Thank you for listening. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. So now we talk about Nancy Pelosi. Finally, the people she thought she owned, that she had in her pocket, the so-called dreamers, she found out that they're Frankensteins. So she tries to give a speech to them, thinking that they're just putty in her hands. Because after all, didn't she wash the feet of illegal aliens about a year ago? What a stunt that was. So she gets up now and talk about we're all dreamers, and listen to what happens to Nancy Pelosi, where they not only want the so-called dreamers to be given everything for free, but they want every one of their relatives brought in from the third world. Every last one of them brought in, mother, father, grandmother, grandfather, all come into this stupid nation of ours and live off the fat of the land. This is what happens to Nancy Pelosi, who created these Frankensteins. Listen to that carefully in clip 12.
They are our VIPs. They're our tourists, our very important people.
Mike check! We are immigrant youth! We are immigrant youth! Undocumented and unafraid! Undocumented and unafraid! We are the immigrant! We are the immigrant! Liberation movement! Liberation movement!
Where did this loudmouth witch come from? Why is she not deported tomorrow? Why? Where's our DHS? This loudmouth girl comes to my country, lives off the fat of the land, gets unlimited benefits, and then screams she's the immigration liberation movement, and she demands this and demands that, shouts down Pelosi, and I want to know why she's not thrown out of the country 2 seconds later. She's a troublemaker. She doesn't belong here. There are rules on the books. She can be thrown out with the rest of these radicals. Do you understand that? But it gets even worse. They don't let old Nancy talk. They scream again. Now, let's not do 13. Let's go to 14. Here is what happens when you cater to terrorists. They get worse, not better. And Nancy should maybe learn that and join the rest of us in protecting America, not the illegal aliens. Listen to 14.
All right. Look, is what I interpret from what you are saying that you do not want us to proceed with the DREAM Act because it is not comprehensive immigration reform. We all are fighting for comprehensive immigration reform. We have said to everyone, be very careful, report to us any deportations because they're telling us they're not happening. And wait a minute. You just wait a minute. You have...
Yeah, they shut. See, she thought she could shut them down. She thought she owned them. She thought that she had the illegal alien brats and grifters wrapped up in a ravioli package. They were not little raviolis. They boiled over on her, and she created them. She owns them. What did you expect to happen, Nancy? You thought that they were going to be your vassals forever? No, they woke up to the fact that you were just giving them double talk and hogwash, and that's what just happened. Now, the question is, what's going to happen now? Will Pelosi and Feinstein and the other wonderful, fine, compassionate leaders of the Democrat, Socialist, Islamist, Micha movement, will they suddenly come to understand that they are in danger by catering to these radicals? Will they come to understand that they are terrorists, that they're not innocent kids who came here with... I love the latest line. They came here and none of them did it on their own. They're all innocent victims of their parents bringing them here. What a hogwash that is. Grant them amnesty? I grant them a one-way ticket to their country of origin. And let me tell you something else. There are jobs waiting for them in their country of origin. Let me tell you something else. Mexico is now welcoming Haitian immigrants. Oh, yeah, we don't want the Haitian immigrants, so they're blocked at the border. Guess where they're going? They're going to Mexico. And guess what? The Mexican government is welcoming Haitian immigrants. Do you know why? Because they work hard. And they're glad to have a job. And guess what? The Mexican economy is booming, and they love the Haitian workers who work very hard. And you know why? Because these loudmouth brats in San Francisco don't work at all. All they do is collect a nice free education. Everybody caters to them. They get subsidized electrical bills. Everyone at the university bows down to them and lets them step on them. Everyone empowers them and gives them the whistles. Everyone tells them how great they are. They don't want to go back to their home country and work, even though there are jobs. They want to stay here and work the system because that's what they were taught to do by Nancy. But little did Nancy Pelosi realize that she is the system that they are working, and now they want to work her.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
It is the Savage Nation. San Francisco deputy who had guns stolen from rental car no longer with department. This goes on over and over in San Francisco. A San Francisco sheriff's deputy who left his service pistol unsecured in a parked car, allowing a thief to break it and take it, is no longer employed by the department. The deputy had only been with the department for less than a year when he reported the burglary. Well, I have a different theory on these cop and sheriff burglaries in San Francisco. A lot of these gangbangers are joining the police department where there is currently no standards whatsoever. And because of affirmative action and a demand to hire anyone except people who are trustworthy, they're bringing in people who they don't even know who they are. They're getting the gun, and then they're letting it be stolen by one of their friends so the gun can't be traced. That's all. Now, you didn't ask for that, but I gave it to you, okay? Don't bother telling that to the mayor. He's busy eating chow fun with the supervisors, who are busy eating a lot of fun with the newspapers. Portland designates second Monday in October as Indigenous Peoples Day. Maine's largest city will no longer celebrate Columbus Day. Instead, they're going to call it Indigenous Peoples Day. And that's because Columbus is a very bad guy. Portland resident Jean Sorkin, if you wonder where she's from, said, Columbus was a murderer. He's a rapist. He's an enslaver. If he were alive today, there is no doubt he would be on death row, said Jean Sorkin. I can only guess where Jean Sorkin would be had Columbus not discovered America. But we'll let that hang in the air. How do you like this? How do you like this? So they're changing calendars now. Well, I've long asked, they took away Lincoln's birthday and Washington's birthday and gave us Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And they call those days President's Day. Didn't they wrap them into one? So why are they taking away the names of European Americans or Europeans from our holidays and leaving the others? Well, the answer is because there is a target on the back of European Americans and on Caucasians in general by the radicals who are running cities, counties, states, and universities. And that's the answer to that. Berkeley receives $100,000 to honor the legacy of the Black Panther Party. Now, the Black Panther Party, as you well know, are a group of murderers. And the American taxpayer gave a grant of $100,000 through the National Park Service to study the history, the visual culture, and the preservation of sights and voices. And the project will discover new links between the historical events concerning race. Huh? What? That's the Black Panthers? That's a discovery of race? They were radical Marxist revolutionary murderers in the 1960s. I mean, I got crazy stories that are so hard to believe. InfoWars found a tape of a professor, a Carol J. Baker, M.D. Now, remember, she's a medical doctor. She's a pediatrics infectious disease professor at the Baylor College of Medicine in Houston. And she told a National Meningitis Association panel discussion that a solution to the large numbers of white people who refuse to let their children be given vaccines is to get rid of white people. This is a medical doctor, a professor, an infectious disease expert, said that a good way to eliminate vaccine refuseniks, who overwhelmingly tend to be white people, is to simply get rid of all the whites in the United States. And she said that the immigrants are very compliant with vaccinations. They love them. Well, I'll let that hang in the air. It shows the madness of the times, because these are mad times. They're maddening times. They're perplexing times. So here's Nancy Pelosi, a woman who encouraged rioting in America with her stupid speeches at commencements where she said, yeah, the disruptors, go out and disrupt. And they burnt a few cities to the ground. She took no credit for that. Now she created this issue of illegal aliens who have rioted and would let her speak because I guess she wasn't Maoist enough for her. She's only a Marxist, not a Maoist. So she gets shouted down by the Frankensteinettes that she created.
If you do not want to listen, if you do not...
Where were you? Where were you? When we asked. When we asked.
I've never asked.
To the back of eggs. Now you tell us. And now you tell us. You have the audacity. You have the audacity. To tell us. You have been fighting deportation.
Yes. 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 Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. You do not. You don't know what you're talking about.
You are a liar. You are a liar. You are a liar. You are a liar.
You are not helping the cause that we want to take this first stage today. Well, do you not want to listen?
We are a cause. 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 We are a cause.
Why don't we do this? Since you don't want to listen, we'll have to just go.
You know, sometimes there is justice in the world. These are very, very special times. Lesser men will stumble, lesser men will fall. Who has the strength to wake up every day and face the world that we're in? Very few of us do. And so we turn away from the world that we're in because there's almost nothing we can do about it. We feel powerless, don't we? We feel powerless with the madman in North Korea getting away with shooting rockets into the Sea of Japan, threatening Guam, threatening to blow up the United States, with the drug addicts in Hollywood attacking Trump instead of Kim Jong-un. These are crazy times. With Nancy Pelosi catering to non-citizens and abandoning American children, these are troubling times. We're on the brink of a nuclear war, and it was not caused by Trump. You could say it was caused by all of the vacillation leading up to these days, as with regards to North Korea, where you have a single family, a mafia family, the Kim family. It's a mafia family that sucks the lifeblood out of every North Korean simply for their own aggrandizement and their own wealth. I don't know if you understand that. That is what the mafia kingdom is. They call it a hermit kingdom. It's astounding to me that you don't understand what he has done. It's the third generation of mafioso in North Korea who have killed, maimed, murdered, tortured their way to controlling the entire nation. They have crippled the North Korean nation. So what do you expect Trump to do now that this maniac, this fat maniac, is now threatening the United States? You expect him to say thank you? So these are very special times. I am like America's father. I know that. I become that. I used to be America's uncle. I've now become a father to millions of people because there are no fathers left, by and large. They're gone. And with the attacks upon the world that we believe in by the vermin on the left, the communists, the socialists, the invaders, it's more important than ever that people support me because I'm one of the last voices left in this country. It's a strong voice, and I know that, and the voice is strong not because of me, but because of God. Listen to me. God has given me this microphone for a couple of reasons, and it's not to enrich myself. God gives me the strength to get up every morning, get myself together, whatever, and get up here and be cogent and speak to the American people who tune in and around the world, because there's a reason for it. There's a reason for everything. And when I'm no longer on the radio, it will be because God doesn't want me on the radio. Do you understand that it's all about that? So what I'm saying is that caller who called out of nowhere, the Hindu caller, he gave me a revelation. I never knew that these fantastic entities of the elephant with eight trunks or the woman with 12 arms were not idols. He was telling me something I did not know. But as I said, not so jokingly, I've never met a Hindu I didn't like. I have gotten along with Sikhs and Hindus wherever I've met them on the planet. It's that simple. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts. I want to talk about two other things in the middle of everything. Two TV shows. So there's shows I watch on TV. One of them is Ray Donovan, which has now become the most depressing TV show in American history. I'll tell you why. And a new one that started on HBO last week called The Deuce, which is nothing but softcore pornography, which I can't watch anymore. It's horrible. They both devolved. In other words, when we all watched The Sopranos on HBO many years ago, that was TV at its highest. It was the best series ever done in history. I rewatch them all the time when I'm bored of everything else, and I see the artistic perfection of every single Sopranos episode. They're flawless from the beginning to the end, whether it be directing, acting, the music, whatever, perfect. So I turn on Ray Donovan, and I've been watching it for a few years. I was off and on with it. I happen to think that, Jon Voight is the best actor in it. Every time he appears on the screen, he takes over the entire show. I watch it just for him, to see him. I'm not a fan of Liev Schreiber. He seems too weak for the role. He still does. And I'm not knocking the guy. He's sort of growing into the role, and I'm sort of getting used to him. He just doesn't look like a tough guy fixer that they try to make him out to be, and I don't buy it. But what's wrong with Ray Donovan now is they've done something that is astonishing. They gave his wife cancer, terminal cancer, and she's dying of it. And at the end of year 2 or whatever, she was dying of it. Now they open up year 3, I think, and they show her without hair, with a kerchief in bed, and every other scene is a flashback to the dying wife. It's enough. Why can't they just kill that character off and be done with it? Why are they dragging out this whole cancer thing? It is so bad that I can't watch Ray Donovan anymore. I may or I may not. But I got to tell you, it's the most depressing TV show in modern American history. Real mistake. And again, The Deuce, I don't know, it's supposed to be at 42nd Street. I tuned it in because I'm a kid from New York originally. I remember 42nd Street when it was a toilet. And when I was a kid, we used to go down there because it was so seedy. We loved it. Kids love seedy. Kids love seedy neighborhoods. If they come from lily white, carpeted, secure neighborhoods, they love to go into seedy. And we used to go to seedy, come out of the subway. It was like walking into another universe. And it was dirty and filthy, and the hookers and the pimps and the this and the that. And then you go back to your safe little world. Well, okay, big deal. So they did a vicarious thrill about 42nd Street called The Deuce. And nothing but softcore porno. There's no story to it. All it is about black pimps and hookers and some guy who works in a bar who's an actor, Russell Brand, who they try to make a split screen with another. He's supposed to have a twin brother. It doesn't work. The twin brother thing is an absolute stupid trick that didn't work. There was a far better British version of twin brother gangsters, one totally insane and one partly insane, that was done years ago by a far better actor than Russell Brand. And anyone who could tell me who I'm talking about, because for the moment the actor is an American actor, he escapes me. I'll give you a free copy of God, Faith, and Reason. But nevertheless, I do not recommend Ray Donovan unless you're a total depressive and want to go psychotic. And I don't recommend The Deuce unless you can't get real pornography and are only allowed to watch the softcore version. Be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
The Savage Nation is sponsored by Swiss America, the only company I trust with my financial future. Call 800-289-2646 or SwissAmerica.com. Do you remember the last year of the reign of terror of Barack Hussein Obama? Do you remember that dictator that we had, Barry? The guy that Rob Reiner loved so much, the guy that the drug addicts in Hollywood loved so much, the man who had created the greatest surveillance state in the history of the world, outdoing that of the Stasi in East Germany. You know that guy, the liar, the snake, the devil himself, who said that he hated millionaires and billionaires while he hung around only with millionaires and billionaires, and then after he retired from the presidency is only with millionaires and billionaires. You know that guy. Remember that guy? In the last years of the reign of terror of that guy, do you remember fearing that the federal government would one day come along and grab you off the streets? Because I do. Do you remember fearing that the federal government was listening in on your every conversation on your iPhones during the reign of terror of Barry, the dictator Hussein Obama? You do remember that? Because I do. Well, I don't fear that anymore. How about you? For that alone, I'm thankful Trump won, and I'm thankful that I devoted myself to getting him elected. Now, that could change. With the generals running the country, as I think they are, it's pretty clear that we've had a soft coup, which I've said before, and we don't know whether this is going to work out good for us. We don't know how it's going to work out yet. There's talk of war with North Korea, which is long overdue. That's a good thing. Now there's talk of war, let's see, with Iran. I'm not so sure that's a good thing. There's also talk now of war with Venezuela. I'm not so sure that's a good thing. But, you know, there's 5 generals running the country, and there's only 3 wars mentioned. So there's still room for 2 more. I guess maybe we can go to war with Mexico and Canada, which will give the other 2 generals something to do. Now, I can give you the more red meat. U.S. is considering downing North Korean missiles, even if they aren't a direct threat. Well, that's a good idea. I called for that last week. Why aren't we shooting them down? Climate change not as threatening to planet as previously thought, new research suggests. Don't tell that to those who just won the Grammys, because they don't know what it means, since none of them went to college. And if they did, they studied a theater, not science. So don't try to explain that to them. Their minds are made up. Don't confuse them with reality. So what do you want me to do for you? Anything you want me to do on the Savage Nation? Because I have a sense of what's coming. These are crazy times. I'm not a prophet, but I'm just a man who studied history. And these are turbulent times we're in, and they're going to be much more turbulent. We all feel it. We feel that there's war on the horizon. We know that the ordinary person out there knows that things are changing. These are uniquely different times with great upheaval in terms of the storms that have hit America and the Caribbean. They're not the strongest storms. We know that. They're about the 7th strongest on record. But the fact that they're coming in now and walloping us now are making people uneasy, and they feel that this turbulence is only just beginning, and so do I. I think we're going to war in a way that you could never imagine. I can see it, and I can feel it. And Donald Trump was selected, believe it or not, for these times. That is correct. Perfect, he is not. You can say whatever you want about him, but America needed a wartime consigliere, and we have it in Donald Trump. It's coming, and he's in the right place at the right time. You'll know it more so later than you know it now. And then those voices of stupidity, like Rob Reiner, the fat slob, who would make a good Kim Jong-un in a replay of the movie that has not yet been done by the idiots of Hollywood, will even believe it one day. And so here we are. We have to live day by day, and we wait for the inevitable. Then they'll blame Trump for whatever goes wrong. They'll never say he did anything right. If he stopped Iran, if he stopped North Korea, if he smashed ISIS, it wouldn't be good enough for the Hollywood idiots. Why? Because they were always stupid. That's why they're actors. You think because they make tens of millions of dollars a year, they're smart? No, my friends. They don't know who they are, where they are, or what they're saying without a script.
Savage.